In this video, we're going to look at using Dragon Medical 1 with Cerner Millennium. We're going to start with some pretty simple introductions. So if you're already using Dragon, you may want to skip ahead a little bit. And you can see the timestamps below the video to try to find a section that you might want to skip ahead to. But for those of you who haven't used it at all, let's start with the basics. So Dragon Medical 1 is a dictation system that you can use either with a microphone that you have attached to your computer, which looks like this one here, or with an app on your phone, which looks like this one here in the background. We're going to go over these in more details here in a minute. When you launch your application, this is kind of what you see usually in a Citrix workspace window, and this is the power chart window that you would potentially open to get your EMR up. If you want to use the Dragon Medical 1, instead of opening this one, you're going to open this one here that says Power Chart with DMO. And the DMO stands for Dragon Medical 1. And what's going to happen is that not only will it open Power Chart, which you can see I have open here in the background, it's going to open this little guy here. And initially you will have the login screen, which looks like this. So you type in your username here, which is given to you by the liaison office. If you haven't gotten that, then contact the liaison office and they'll help you get that set up. And then you pick which microphone you want to use. So right now I'm connected to the system remotely, so I don't have one of these microphones plugged into my computer. If I did, that would have been the default microphone. It says Power Mic, and I would be able to select that. If I wanted to instead use the mobile one, which is going to be with my mobile device like my cell phone, then I could switch and pick this one, the Nuance Power Mic Mobile. So I just give my username, which I have to type in, and then I pick which microphone. I don't change the language or the specialty, and I hit OK. That's going to log me into the Dragon Medical 1, and it puts this little thing up here. This is called the Dragon Bar, and this tells me that I'm logged into the Power Mic because I have that little cell phone icon. If I was logged in with a regular microphone, I would just have a little picture of a microphone there. And then this is the button that gets me to the menu options for the Power Mic. Most of the time I just leave this up here because this is a useful piece of information. When I turn on the microphone, this turns green, and then if it's not working, it might turn red. So it gives you some idea of what's going on. But if you're finding this is annoying, you can minimize it and get it out of the way with the little dash icon here. So let's take a look at the two microphones. This is the traditional microphone that's plugged into the computer here on the right, called the Power Mic 3. And this is the one that we have in our clinics and we have in the hospital. A big red button in the middle for turning on the microphone. So if you're going to use this one, you hold in the button and then this icon will turn green and then you start dictating. You may notice that there's a small delay between when you push the button in and when this turns green. So when I first started using this, I would dictate right away as soon as I hit the button, and a lot of times it would miss the first couple of words. So then you kind of get in the habit of holding the button in, giving it just a fraction of a second to make sure that turns green and then going. I also found a good trick, which is that if you use the plus button on the numeric keypad on your keyboard, it will turn the microphone on and it will stay on until you hit the microphone button again. So if you're going to be doing like a whole note, instead of having to hold that button in the whole time, you can hit that plus button on your keyboard next to all the little numbers, and it will turn the microphone on for you. So I like using that. There are several other buttons on here, and so the most important ones here are the forward and backwards. So these with the line at the end of it, these are going to help you navigate through different boxes in the EHR. Unfortunately, it doesn't help you migrate between like the different sections of the SOAP, but it's going to help you go back and forth between different brackets if you use it with some Autotext, and I'll show you how that works. This button up here is the T to little text box, and this is going to tell the system it should transfer the text from a text box into the program, and I'll show you what that means later on when we get into the system. Then there's a check mark box here at the bottom, and this is a variable. So you can actually program the buttons to do whatever you want. And by default, this check mark hides or displays this Dragon Bar, but as I mentioned, I think it makes sense to leave that showing pretty much all the time. So I would recommend changing this default to something else. So I'm clicking on the menu here, and I'm going to go to the options. And then I can click on the microphone buttons here in the options, and this shows me the microphone buttons. You can see that it's the same buttons on the app screen as on the actual microphone. So I have this check mark, I have whether I'm showing or hiding the dictation box, I have the transfer text. This is the button that turns on the dictation or turns off the dictation, and these are for the fields forward or backwards. So the default for this checkmark box is this show or hide dragon bar, but I recommend you change this to accept defaults, and that's going to help you when you're using brackets in the Autotext, and I will show you that later on in the video. So I would recommend changing the checkmark to accept defaults, and that will work both for the mobile screen and also for the actual power mic. Now to look a little bit more in detail at this screen over here, this is a picture of what the screen will look like on your device. So for instance, I have it on my iPhone, but you can also do this on Android devices. And this is what the screen looks like when you log in on the mobile device. When you first log in and when you first open the app, you will have to just log in. It saves your username, which is nice, and it will search. And it's pretty cool because you just have to be on Wi-Fi, and it will connect to the cloud, and it will connect with this toolbox up here, and it will be connected. So it's secure because nothing's saved on your device. It all goes straight to the cloud, and then it goes over to this, and then it goes down into the application. So it's a pretty cool setup, the way it works. You can see, as I mentioned, the same buttons are here as over here on the regular microphone. And this one, instead of holding in the button to dictate, you just actually tap on this little icon of the microphone, and then it will turn this green up here. And that way you know it's connected. So the same buttons apply here as on the other microphone that we saw. And remember, this is not the actual microphone. Most of us, the actual microphone's on the bottom of the phone, so you might kind of tilt your phone up toward your face when you're using it, and it will capture your voice a little bit easier. So I'm going to minimize those windows, and let's take a look again at how this is used. So let's get right into it and show you how you might use it. So basically, you can't see me actually using my phone, which I'm holding in my hand off the camera here, but whenever I touch the button to turn on the dictation, you will see that this icon turns green, and then I will start talking, and then I'm going to click it off, and I'm going to, you'll see it turn red again. So just a couple of introduction things to think about when you're using this. There are lots of commands that you can give the Dragon, and of course you can dictate through the Dragon. And so basically, whenever you say something into Dragon, the Dragon has to then decide, are you giving it a command or are you dictating? So whenever you want to give it a command, it's a good idea to pause for a short second after the command, because that way it will be able to understand that what you said was a command and it will do it. If you're dictating, you can kind of just keep dictating for pretty much as long as you want, and then it will catch up when you take a break. Although when you're getting used to it, it's a good idea to dictate maybe a sentence or two and then take a break, let it type in what you said, and you can review it, and then kind of carry on from there until you get really comfortable with it. These days, because I've been using this for quite a while now, I'll dictate my whole HPI, for instance, in one long breath, basically, and the system will keep up with me, and then it will drop it all in at the end when I'm done talking. So let me just show you a quick demonstration of what it might look like. I'm going to turn on the microphone, and I'm going to dictate, and it's going to start catching up with me. Patient is a 40-year-old male who has had runny nose for the last 5 days, period. He says that he has not had any fevers or chills, comma, no coughing, no shortness of breath, but really just a runny nose, period. He has tried blowing his nose and taking some Sudafed, and that has helped a little bit, period. So probably the biggest change to what you're used to doing is to actually dictate your punctuation, and you kind of get used to it. What's nice about the Dragon Medical one is Most of the time, I don't have to tell it to capitalize things. As you can see, it automatically capitalized things as I was going. It puts in spacing. Really, the only thing that it sometimes has a little trouble with for me is when I'm dictating about menstrual periods, and then sometimes it puts in a period. But there are lots of different tools you can use to do some correction on what you've done with your dictation. Next, we're going to start looking at some of the commands you can use in Dragon to navigate and make corrections and do other things. One thing to keep in mind is that the system, whenever you have the microphone on, is always listening, and it has to decide, is this something that the user wants me to dictate and type in, or is this a command that the user is giving me? And basically the way to differentiate that is by pauses in what you're saying. So if you're going to give a command, you want to give the full command and then have a pause. The system will then read what you said and know that that's a command. If you want to dictate, then you can just say what you want it to dictate, keep going, and then when you're done with your dictation, you can have your pause. It'll catch up to you and it'll type everything in. So a good example is that when you're trying to select words, if you say select shortness of breath, it will select this whole area of shortness of breath here on the screen. But if I say select shortness of breath, and if I have that pause in there, as soon as I have that pause, it's going to take action. So it would try to select that shortness for me. And then if I keep dictating, then it's not going to know what I'm saying, and it's going to probably try to dictate that. So just pay attention to that when you're doing your commands. Be ready for what you want to say and say the whole command succinctly, and then a pause at the end, and then it will do it for you. You can always say undo that if it does something incorrect, and then you can try it again. And you'll find the more that you practice it and the more you do it, the more confident you'll get, and the more the system will understand what you're wanting it to do. Let's take a look at how you can use your voice to make some corrections here in the system. So let's say this actually was a female patient and not a male patient. So instead of having to kind of use my mouse and try to come up here and click on female, what I can do is actually use the command and have it select male, and then I can tell to replace it with female. Also, when I tell it to select a word, it will actually come up with some recommendations for something that might be close, so it might give me some options. If I see one of the options I like, I can just choose it from there. So let's give it a try and see what it looks like. Select male. So you can see here now that I've selected it, it's giving me some opportunities to make changes. So maybe I meant mail like the mail that you send in the mailbox. And if that's the case, I would just say choose one and it would change it for me. It's giving me some style options. So maybe I wanted to capitalize it or have it in all caps. So I could say choose 4 if I wanted it to be capitalized. In this case, though, I want to change it to female. And now since that word male is highlighted, to change it to female, all I have to do is turn the microphone back on and dictate what I want it to say. Female. So now we'll change it to female. You can see now my cursor is up there at the end of female in case I want to do any other things. Let's say I wanted to put something else in here into the dictation. So let's put something in after the 5 days. Insert after 5 days. So you can see by saying insert, the system moves the cursor for me. So now the cursor is right behind 5 days, and I can start saying anything else I would want to, and it will just add it on there. And maybe started the night before that. And so it automatically does the formatting for me. I don't have to worry about it. It takes care of that for me. Now, if I'm done with my fixes, to get my cursor back to the end of the section, I dictate the command go to end, and it moved the cursor for me to the end. And then I can just keep dictating more if I wanted to. Sometimes you might want to select or edit more than just one word. So you can actually use the select voice command to highlight a whole sentence or a whole paragraph if you want to. And you would do that by saying select, and then you give it the first couple of words in the section. Then you say through, and then you give it the last couple of words in the section. See if we can get that to work. Select he has tried through little bit period. So now you see that I have that section completely highlighted, and I can tell it to delete that or whatever I wanted to do as far as my next command. So a few other commands you can give the dragon can be useful. So if I want to just get rid of something, I can use the command scratch that or erase that. If I want to capitalize something, I can use the command caps that. I can say bold that. I can say italics that. There are a lot of different things you can say, and at first it could be hard to remember. So there's actually a way to remind you. Up here in the Dragon Bar menu, you can see there's an option for what you can say. You can actually also do a dragon command, what can I say? And that will take you to the what can I say. This pops up for you here. And this shows you with different categories what things you can say. So for instance, for changing your format, you can say format that bold or bold that. You can say italicize that, what have you. And you can move around within the system. So this gives you some ideas of all the different commands that are available for you inside Dragon. So again, you can just dictate what can I say, or you can come up here into the menu and look at the what you can say. Now overall, most of us have found that the Dragon Medical one does a remarkably good job of picking up what we're saying and being able to transcribe it and type it out into the chart for us, regardless of people's accents or first language and so forth. This pretty powerful program using cloud data to analyze your voice pretty quickly and dictate what you said. It really does a great job also because it's a Dragon medical one of picking up your medical terminology and jargon and medications, for instance. I think it does a better job of spelling some of the medication names than I do. So take a look at that and give it a chance, and don't be shy about trying to dictate things, and you might be surprised at what it's able to pick up. One of the things, though, it does struggle with is names. And so let's take a look at that and see how it does and see how we can add something to the vocabulary if it's not able to pick it up. So one of our providers' name is Dr. Lockenpaul. Let's see if it's able to understand and type out her name. Patient recently saw Dr. Lockenpaul. And so not unexpectedly, it doesn't know how to spell Dr. Lockenpaul's name. So we're going to fix this. Just going to go in here and I'm going to type in Dr. Lockenpaul, and I cheated and I pasted it from the web page so that I spelled it correctly. But all I have to do is highlight it, and then I can give the Dragon command, add to vocabulary. And that's going to bring me the vocabulary menu here in Dragon Medical 1, and I can set up the pronunciation so that it will know it. So I can use the default pronunciation, but again, this was what got me here, is that it didn't know how to pronounce it. So I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to tell it how I want to pronounce it, and we'll see if it's able to match it. So I'm going to click this button and then turn on my microphone. Dr. Lockenpaul. So in this case, the written word and how I said it still differs too much, so it's not able to match it up. So it wants me to write out what I said in a kind of a pronunciation method. So I'm going to say Dr. Lockenpaul, kind of what it pronounces like, and then I'm going to confirm that. And now it's added the vocabulary word. So let's try this again. Patient recently saw Dr. Lockenpaul. And now it knows how to spell Dr. Lockenpaul's name on my system. And when I say that anytime in the future, it's going to just be able to put that right in for me. So I've got quite a few of our doctors built out that way, the consultants and the regular doctors. And it just makes it a little bit easier when I want to put those names in dictation. I don't have to go back in and try to futz with it. It just is able to know right away. You may find some drugs or some certain phrases that you use. It may just not like the way you pronounce it or what have you. So you may need to do that for a couple of vocabulary words. And it's relatively straightforward by using that command again, add to vocabulary. When we were discussing the different buttons on the microphone, I mentioned that there's a dictation or a text box that sometimes comes up, and I'll show you what that means now. So over here, I'm in the Millennium system, and typically what I want to do is click into the section where I want to dictate and start dictating, and then it's able to just put it right in there. If, for instance, so I've made a mistake and I've clicked out of it, or I don't have an active box for the text to go into, the system's not going to be sure where it wants me to put the text. So instead of trying to guess and potentially putting it in the wrong place, it's going to put it in a little box for me, and that will allow me to do whatever I want with it later. So let's show you what that looks like. So again, I don't have an actual section highlighted, and I'm going to dictate. Patient is here today for a physical. So it's going to put this into the dictation box for me. So this is the dictation box, and now I can take the stuff from the dictation box and I can put it into something. So now I realize, oops, I hadn't clicked where I wanted it, or the system didn't know where I wanted it. So I'm going to, again, click where I want it, and then I can click this button to transfer the text into it. There is also a dragon command for that, and I can just say transfer text. And I like the dragon command because not only does it transfer text, but it goes ahead and closes that box and gets it out of your way. Now you're back in here and you can carry on. I could start dictating again with a period and then whatever else I wanted to say for my next sentence. You could also use the button on your microphone, as I mentioned, but again, think that the dragon command is a good way to do that. Also, if the text box comes up and you don't want it, you can use the dragon command close text box. Again, there are quite a few of those kind of commands that you can take a look at through the What Can I Say menu here in Dragon. Sometimes you will get some text in the text box that you didn't really want to have in there, such as if you have the microphone turned on when you weren't actually trying to dictate. There is a couple of good commands that can help with this, and the commands are discard text and then close dictation box. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to say discard text, close dictation box. And again, because I had those pauses right after I made the commands, it knew that it was a command and it was able to take action on the command. When I said it all fluently as text, then it didn't recognize it as command and it just typed it in. So that's the big difference on how to get it to understand that you're doing a command versus that you're dictating. When you dictate, just try to do it in your normal voice and keep talking, and it knows you're dictating and it will type it out for you. When you give it a command, succinctly give the command and then give it a short pause. Next, let's take a look at how you can use the buttons to navigate through some of those brackets I mentioned earlier by using some Autotext. So I'm going to bring in a Autotext that I have for URI, and you can see I have these brackets. So these are not the regular parentheses, but these are the little brackets. And what happens is when you use those arrows that we had seen earlier on the microphone, these guys here at the bottom, or the similar arrows on the plug-in microphone, it's going to select that whole section inside the bracket. So I push the arrow on my microphone here, and it will select this whole section inside the bracket. So this allows us to do a couple of things. The most important thing is that everything from the bracket to the end of the bracket is highlighted. So when I start dictating, it's going to just erase all that stuff and put in whatever I say. So I actually like all the stuff that's in there, so I'm not going to dictate anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on, and I'm going to go down to the neck part, and I'm going to change that. So I'm just pushing forward on the arrow, and it's going forward through the sections. These sections are all good. And then I'm going to say that this patient, instead of being supple with no lymphadenopathy, I'm going to say small palpable lymph node on the left anterior cervical chain. And so because it automatically had highlighted what was in the brackets, when I dictated, it just overrode it, and now I have my actual findings in there. So what I like about using the brackets here is that because all of these other things fit what my actual exam was for this patient now, I don't have to change any of those other things. I like them all and I can keep them. Now, one of the things you can do to make this look a little prettier is get rid of the brackets. And this is where that button came in that we set up earlier on the system. This check mark button, if I click it, it will get rid of all of the brackets for me. I can also use the dragon command accept defaults So I'm going to hit the button on my microphone, and there went all of the brackets for me, and that looks beautiful. I can move on to the next section. Once you've got comfortable using Dragon Medical 1 to build out your dictations in the system, you may want to start using it to help you with some of your auto text as well. So as you're probably aware, I'm a big fan of using the dot phrases or auto text in the system. I have quite a few built. I'm going to bring in one of mine that I sometimes use for well childs. This is my well child baby plan. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to turn this into a Dragon auto text as well as an auto text inside of the Millennium. So I have highlighted what I want, and then I'm going to give the command, make that an auto text. So this is going to bring me to the auto text menu in Dragon Medical 1. I'm just going to bring it over to my other screen. Here it is. And it highlighted and brought in all of my text that I had selected into the content of the box. So I could have typed it in here if I wanted to, but since I already had it made, I just selected and brought it in. And then all I have to do is really give it a name. The name is going to be the same thing as the spoken form, which is what I'm going to say to prompt it to put this in. So I'm going to call this Plan Baby. It's unlikely I'm going to ever give the command Plan Baby without wanting it to actually do this command. So I think this is going to work pretty well. You can see I have a few others like PE Min, PE Normal, PE Video, things like that that I'll use from time to time. And so let me show you how that works now. So now I have my auto text named. I have some content there. I can apply that, close the window. Now if I get rid of all this text here, instead of doing on my keyboard and trying to find the auto text through Millennium, I can just use my voice to put in the command. Plan Baby. And now just like that, it automatically put in my auto text, and I have a couple brackets here. So again, the way I would use this, vaccines today, and I might say appropriate for age. And then I'll hit the next arrow and I'll go to this next bracket, which is next well visit at age, and then I might say 9 months. So that by using my voice commands, I can access my auto text maybe even a little bit faster than doing it in the keyboard. And then I can use again the brackets to move through my auto text if I have those built in. So you can see how using some of these tools all together can actually make you a lot more efficient.